Hi, I'm Howard from CycleVan. You can visit us at cyclevan.com, or you can go to our transit website, fordvanworld.com. Today, we're going to be putting a set of running boards on a Ford Transit 2015 148-inch wheelbase. This particular Transit has a factory step in place by the sliding door. That's pretty common from Ford, and this particular customer wants us to take that step off and put a full-length step on. So that's what we're going to do today. Now, in the case of the Transit like this that has a factory step, there might be a likelihood that you'll want to order this short step and just leave this alone. So we've addressed this installation in both those ways. One long one, or leaving this step and putting a short step here in conjunction with this. In order to do that, there's some fasteners underneath here from Ford that we can loosen up and slide this step back a little bit. I think it goes back 5 inches or so from where it is now, and then the step that we offer will fit right in front of that, and we'll show you how to move that step. In the case of the original step by the sliding door that you're going to leave in place, we mentioned moving it back approximately 5 inches. We'll give you that measurement in a second, but it's easily done, really. There's some 8mm bolts underneath here. On each bracket, there's 4 of them. We already loosened this one over here, and we're going to loosen the back one. You don't need to take them out. Loosen them up maybe 5 or 6 turns. And then you smack them up. And then the step will slide. Once you get the step where you want it, you tighten them back up. In order to use our short step on here, as we've been speaking about, it was moving this step back. So what we did, this step was about here. We loosened up the bolts under there. We haven't tightened them up yet. But if you move this original step back so that it's even with this seam right here, that'll allow you the space necessary for us to for you to install the step that we sell in the short style. Now, it fits pretty good like that. The back of the step is even with this seam. Not bad. So everything's going to look pretty good when it's in place. So we lightly installed, meaning a couple of screws, this step in conjunction with the factory. This is our step with the polished finish, like chrome, and that's the factory step. There's a slight difference in height, but for those customers who don't want to spend for a full-length board, this is what the short step looks like. We used the polished one just to show you how it would look in contrast with what's there. But I'm sure a black one would look a whole lot more uniform on this truck. As far as dimensions go on this step, there's a couple of things that you need to know to show you how effective adding a step on your Transit is going to be. First of all, the overall length of the step from tip to tip is 32 inches. As far as the short step goes, the long step is going to be 93. The difference in height from the Transit step well to the top of this step we just added is 8 inches. And in the case of this 350 series Transit, which happens to have a step that ends up at 10.5. So you got 10.5 off the ground and 8 to get inside. It almost splits it in half. Anybody who's having trouble getting into this vehicle will absolutely appreciate that. So what we've done is we mounted the black short step on the Transit next to the original step, which just slid back a little bit, even with this body seam. And we have a slight height discrepancy, which makes sense though, and I'll tell you why. This step well is lower than this step well. You have a 8.5 inch difference between this step well and the top of our running board. Here you got 9.5, not that much percentage-wise, around the same. So here we're 9.5 off the ground, just about 8.5 off of there. We're almost splitting this in half, just like this does. This is 22 and 12. So you're almost splitting both of these steps in half. Okay, I'm taking the nuts and bolts off of this step, the factory original step. I'm just finishing that up now. Thought I was. Anyway, here we go. Okay. And that step comes right off. Okay, starting with the first bracket on the passenger side, you'll notice that the first bracket, as well as the rest of the brackets in the kit, have decals on them, showing their locations on the vehicle and how far from the very front edge right here you're going to be measuring back from. So this first bracket happens to be 9.5 inches back, and it's going to go up like this. So I'm going to take my red pencil, which actually I took already, and I made a mark. I held this up where it goes. I made the mark at 9.5, and it's going to be centered on this bracket. I hold this up, and I made a red mark here, and I already drilled it with a 3/16 drill bit. I'll drill the second one now. Don't go flying through. Keep control of the drill. And then we're going to put the bracket up. Here it is. Okay. And we got these self-tapping screws. And then we'll put both of those screws in now. Okay, now that these two bolts are in the pinch weld, this piece of metal right here being called the pinch weld, we're going to put extra self-tappers in the upper two screws. There's 4 holes here. You could pick 2. You really only need to put 2 in. Diagonal, 2 at the top, it doesn't matter. Now, I don't drill a pilot hole for those upper screws because these little pointies pierce pretty good and they go right in. I picked that one. And I picked that one. So on this first bracket, you've got the 2 pinch weld screws in, you got the rocker panel screws in, and then you're going to use this upper stiffener bracket. And the best way to orient it is this way, facing on the the forward side of the main bracket, up and over, facing forward like that, because it's resting on this rib right here. And then we're going to put 2 of these self-tapper screws right in and right up. I put a washer on this self-tapper, and we're going to put it straight up into the underside of the step well. Once that's done, I'll put these 2 bolts in here, and we'll tighten them down. In preparation of the second bracket, which has a decal on it, and it's made to be mounted 23.5 inches back from the front, we made our mark here. This upper tab is bolted to the existing threaded hole. There's 2 of them here, and I'm bolting it to the second one with the furnished metric bolt because the thread exists already. We're going to furnish this bolt and we're going to mark it so that it's distinctly different than the others. Maybe paint it red or gold or something else. And it's going to be installed so this bracket is in like this. I didn't tighten it yet. There's a slot in here, so we have some movement, and there's going to be a stiffener arm that's going to bolt to this, and if we need to move it, we can do it. We've got 3 holes, we've got a slot, so we can move this. Okay, so the mark is 23.5 inches back. We put our tab up top, and I'm going to hold this up, and I'm going to mark, as I said earlier, I'm going to mark both of these holes. I'm going to drill only one right now, and put the screw in, and once that's in, I'll drill the second one. Do one at a time. It's really a little bit better and easier to handle. Now, when you're putting these upper brackets on, you've got these corrugations on the underside of the step well. And you really want this to lay halfway decent on it, not on a goofy angle. So you can mount these this way, this way, this way, this way, whichever makes the most sense. This one's kind of right on here. I'm going to go right like that and straight up. Even though this has got a space here, I could put 2 screws where I'm resting right on this rib. So just, and you have the ability to tilt it a little bit too because we got slotted holes. As you can see, we're doing this laying on the ground on cardboard. You have room to do it. You don't need a lift to do this. Okay, so we got the Z bracket in place. usually goes to this hole right underneath the upright tab. And we went to this little bracket up top. I tilted the bracket a little bit because it seems to fit a little better because we didn't tighten it. But now that we got everything in place, we're going to go ahead and tighten it. Tighten the metric bolt. I'm going to tighten the and that's that. Okay, now this rocker panel in the front, I only had to put the screws right in. The pointy screws pierced and went right in. We're resting this at 48 inches, the third bracket. We're resting this upper one on this little bump here. This is like double or triple metal here. So in this case, on this bracket and the very last bracket, on this hump, we're going to pre-drill it and put the self-tappers in because you're not going to be able to run them right in. Okay. Now, on the last bracket, like this bracket, you can't see it, there's these studs here. These studs exist because this particular transit had a factory step on it. So you got a couple of holes under here and a couple of threaded studs sticking out. And we're not using those, but they are near where we're going to put this. So we marked this off at 74, and that's going there. And on the other side, the stud is very close, but just disregard that stud. It has nothing to do with what we're doing. So we're going to hold this up. We're going to mark these holes, put the screws in just like we did before. But again, on this bump, this is like thick metal. We're going to pre-drill here, of course, down to pinch weld, and here as well on the last two brackets on this side. We're going to pre-drill up here too. Putting these upright tabs in, same way we did in the front. You can orient them whichever way makes sense. This way made sense. I'm putting a second screw in. Okay, and then I'm going to tighten this up. So this bracket's going to be finished in a second. I'm going to put this upright on the last bracket. The way that this metal is bent, I can only get one screw in. That's not a problem. I'll just put the one screw in. And when you screw up into the underside of this stepwell piece, it's fairly thin, so you don't need to pre-drill this section. Only the bump outs here and in the pinch weld. I also wanted to say that one other thing that helps on these self-tapper screws, you put a little dot of grease on them and they run right in. So if you're impact gunner, if you're having trouble getting them in, a little bit of grease makes a big difference. And when you're drilling these holes, once you wrap a little bit of strip of duct tape on the drill bit to make a little drill stop so you don't damage this plastic. Because if you don't have total control over your drill, you could run through that plastic. Okay, so I just pre-drilled this pilot hole for this stiffener bar. We're going to put a self-tapping screw in there. And that metal's a little thicker than what's down on this rocker trim, so you can pre-drill that too. And I do the same for the last hole. Go about medium speed with the drill bit. Don't go full speed. Go about medium speed. It cuts better. Plus, you have better control. Look at that. Like a battleship. This is the fourth bracket and last bracket. This stiffener bar, Z bar, goes in. Bolts on here, you got a slot, and then you're going to put the two self-tappers. So this is bracket number 4. So the brackets that get this stiffener bar are the second and the fourth on the passenger side. The supplied square head bolts slide in the extrusion like that. In the case of the long running board, there's going to be 4 in the back groove and 4 in the front groove. And we take a piece of masking tape, temporarily leave it on there so that when they tilt the board, they don't slide off and land on the floor and you're chasing them. This bracket is known as the horizontal bracket. As you can see, we hung loosely the front bracket and the rear bracket on the Transit. We're going to hang the black running board on there and then put it up into place. But I wanted to make mention here about the projection, how far out this bracket comes from the body. And there's going to be two different locations that this bracket can go in depending on which running board style you've purchased from us here. The black running board or the polished style utilizes these two holes. You'll have this little end hanging off these two holes for the black. And then the grip plank comes out further and drops lower, and you use the last two holes, these two holes here. So when you're doing this, it'll be in the instructions, but you have a choice of holes for that reason. We've made these brackets universal in that you can do the grip plank style or the black/chrome style using the same horizontal brackets, but the holes you choose by which to mount these will be different. Okay, so we've slid these square-headed bolts into the extrusions. We got these two at this end. I put 4 in the middle for these other two brackets and the other two down at that end. We're going to use these two outboard holes. We're going to orient these such that they line up with this, and we're going to flip it in and put nuts from underneath. These two holes take these two bolts. So we got the front horizontal bar on and the rear horizontal bar on. We're snugged. We looked at it from the top down. We looked at it from the side for level. We looked at it from the back, see what the tilt looks like. And we're pretty happy with what we have so far. Now we're going to go in and tighten up those horizontal brackets front and back. And then the middle brackets, the other two, we're just going to simply put up into place and tighten them right in. You have this inside in and out adjustment. We got up and down adjustment. We can tilt it. And right now, we're pretty happy with what we have. So we're going to put the other brackets right up into place and tighten everything up, and then we're going to be done with this side. So we've installed this long running board on the side of this Transit. We got 4 brackets. We got the support bars. We got it laid nice and straight, nice and level, and we got more than enough strength to handle anything. £600. Good to go. Commuter van, family van, any van.